Alrighty, fit folk, in today's video we're talking about the brutal truth about permanent weight loss. We're going to go through three things. That is, a myth that sends people off down the wrong path, what the evidence really says is going on in terms of keeping weight off long run, and finally, a reality check about some simple things you can do to put you on the right path to losing weight and keeping it off in the long run. Let's get into it. Alrighty, first up, let's talk about this myth that causes endless heartache to people trying to lose weight. So back in 1958, a guy wrote a paper that quantified the amount of stored energy in a pound of fat. And basically he worked out the amount of adipose tissue in a pound of fat and what water there was. And he worked out that roughly there are 3,500 calories of stored energy that can be used by a person in a pound of body fat. And basically, he said that if you create a deficit of 3,500 calories between how much energy you use and how much energy you eat, then you will lose a pound of body fat if your protein stores remain equal. And then what people did with that number was they said, well, wait a second, 3,500 calories divided by 7 is 500 calories a day. And that's what became the 500 calorie rule, which is basically if you cut 500 calories a day, then each week you will lose a pound of fat, which, over the first week is kind of correct. But then what happened was people think, well, yes, I'll just cut 1,000 calories a day and I'll lose a pound a week. And in reality, that is not what happens, because in the original paper, he said that as time goes by, your body will adjust by getting lighter and using less energy. And this is exactly what happens. But built into all the apps that we use and all the equations that people run, there is this myth that you can just cut 500 calories a day and lose a pound a week in perpetuity. And it's just not the case. And I'll show you really, really simply how. Imagine if you had a 100 kilo guy, so 220 pounds, and he needed 3,000 calories a day to maintain his body weight. And then what we did was we drop him to 2,500 calories a day and just feed him that. And what the myth tells us is that after 4.5 years, his body weight will have dropped to 0. And we know, intuitively, that's complete nonsense. There is no man in the world that is going to waste away eating 2,500 calories a day. And yet, in the apps that we have, and when people do their equations, this is the number that people use. But we know from more recent research that this is just nonsense, that by the end of the week, if you're eating 3,000 calories and you drop to 2,500 calories, by the end of the week, your body will already be using less energy. It will have noted that you're getting less energy, and it will already have started to adapt by the end of the week. And then by the end of 12 months, that 500 calorie deficit could have dropped to 300, 250 calories easily. And this is how adaptive your body is. But this 3,500 calorie myth, it really sets people up for failure, because they think, oh, I can just drop 500 calories a day and, that'll sort it out, that'll fix me. And then if I drop 1,000 calories a day, my 20-pound diet will only take me 10 weeks and I'll be done with it and it'll be over. And it's just not how it works. Okay, now let's talk about what the evidence shows us about permanent weight loss. In recent years, they've learned much, much more about a body's hormonal responses to losing weight. And we know that our fat mass sends a leptin signal to our brain that warns us that we're losing weight, and it adapts accordingly. So as we lose weight, our body starts using less energy. First, because just pure physics, that when we have less mass to move around, we lose less energy. But more importantly, we also have these hormones that send a signal to our brain, our leptin in our fat sends a signal to our brain and tells us we've got to use less energy to protect our fat mass. So this will cause us to use less energy and become more hungry. And basically what happens is they've been able to quantify it, and the best modeling that we have tells us that the more appropriate rule is that for every pound of fat that you want to lose in perpetuity, you need a 10-calorie change in your energy balance. So for instance, in this case where we've dropped 500 calories, what we would expect is that after a year, we've kind of dropped down maybe 13 kilos, and then by 3 years, we've lost almost the full kind of 23 kilos, the 50 pounds that we're expecting to lose, and then it's going to plateau out. And this is much more in line with the true response. So this man that needed 3,000 calories a day, what would happen if he started eating in perpetuity 2,500 calories a day? His body would gradually settle at the new set weight of 77 kilos, which is that 50-pound loss we're talking about. And obviously there's some individual variation, and ideally you wouldn't just cut calories, you'd also start to move more. But a really, really proper way to think about this permanent weight loss problem is to make permanent changes, because you need to create a permanent change in your energy balance to maintain the weight loss. And this is why we're all yo-yoing all the time. Because basically, let's say you do something drastic and you lose 20 pounds, but your metabolic rate has really been pushed down. Then you're hungry, you're using less energy, and when you go back to your normal diet, your body just shoots back because it's got this hormonal system that's defending its fat mass. It literally is defending its fat mass so that you can continue to reproduce. It's an evolutionary hangover, and we live in a world of hyperpalatable food, so it's actually really, really hard work. But the most important thing is just to not misunderstand the problem in the first place. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the reality of permanent weight loss. Okay, so this is the reality, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it because I'm being mean to be kind. This is the truth about permanent weight loss according to the science. The reality is permanent weight loss requires permanent change. It's just a truth. That's what the science shows us. If you go and do some really nasty shake diet for 10 weeks that doesn't teach you anything and doesn't change any permanent habits, then when you go back to your habitual eating, you will gain that weight back. That is just what we see in the evidence time after time after time. But people are in a rush and they're desperate to lose weight, so they go and do stuff that's really unsustainable and it doesn't teach them anything. And if you take the opposite approach and just say, well, wait a second, rather than do something that for the next 5 weeks that's really, really hard, if you say, hey, what are some things that I could actually stick for the next year? So some type of change that actually has a chance of becoming a permanent change. If you focus on those things instead of these short, fast wins, then you have a real chance at permanently changing your body. And I like to focus, rather than kind of all these kind of negative things that we always do, like cut fat or cut carbs or even cut calories, why not try and focus on some positive things you can do to try and improve your body composition? And here's just a few, and these are all more. These are positives. Okay, so eat more protein. Really, really simple. If you eat a bit more protein, it's going to reduce your appetite, and it's a really sensible way, a hormonal way of controlling your hunger long term. Really smart. Lift more weight. We know that lifting weight will protect and even improve your resting metabolic rate, which means you're burning calories when you sleep. Drink more water. I'm really interested in drinking more water because most calories that we drink are really not that useful in terms of keeping us full, and when we drink water, we're not drinking other things. So it's just really sensible. Also, just good hydration is super for your health. Eat more veggies. High vegetable intake, high variety vegetable intake is pretty much the healthiest thing we know. And if you look at all the longest lived societies on earth, they eat a lot of veggies, and veggies have a lot of volume and fewer calories. They stretch your stomach, they tell your brain that you're full. So veggies are awesome. And finally, take more steps. It's a little simple one, but as you lose weight, you lose energy expenditure. And a really simple way to try and stop that happening is just to take more steps. And that is superb for your health, and it's a really, really positive thing. Well, anything else? Probably sleep more. Sleep is really important for partitioning calories well, and also for not being too hungry. But those are your positives. Now, if you're interested in this stuff, which is basically using smart science to make weight loss easier, I have a challenge going up. It's a 10-week challenge, and I'm trying to teach you some skills that you can use for the rest of your life. We'll go through 10 kind of ideas, a short video each Sunday, and I'm going to teach you something smart and then give you a little challenge that you can try to implement it into your life in a way that sticks. And they're all really, really easy, simple ideas, because we know from all the behavior change science that if you start with simple steps and plant that seed in the right place, then you can create lasting change. And when it comes to losing weight and keeping it off, the truth about permanent weight loss is that it requires permanent change. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you jump on the email list and get our 5 simple strategies to start losing weight cheat sheet.